Hey everyone, in this video we're going to look at the process of how to make a graph in Excel. Now the process in Google Sheets or another software program should be pretty similar. Now this does assume that you have already performed all the necessary calculations on your data. So if you're not sure how to do that, I would suggest that you pause here and go watch that video first. So the first step in this process is going to be to choose the type of graph that you want to make. So here we've switched over to Excel, and you can see that I've got some data here where I've got two different groups, and I have already calculated the mean and the standard deviation for my groups. Now, when I make a graph, I don't want to put every single data point on there because that makes it really difficult to see what's going on. So the data that I specifically want to use here is the mean data. So I've only got 2 points here. I'm going to select both of these cells with my mean calculations in, and I'm going to go up here and select Insert, and I'm going to choose a 2D column chart. And this will allow me to directly compare my two groups side by side. So now I have my graph created. I want to start the process of organizing it so that I can see what my different groups of data are. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to move my data into what we call series. So coming back over to Excel here, I have my graph, and I'm going to choose this Select Data option up here. Now here you see everything is in the same series, but that's not going to be the easiest way to look at my data. So first thing I'm going to do is choose the Series 1, and I'm going to edit it. I'm going to select the names of one of my groups, and then I'm going to choose the mean number that just goes with that group. So now you see I only have one bar, so I'm going to add in another series for the second group, and I'm going to do the same thing, select the name, and then go ahead and select the values. Now on my horizontal axis, my x-axis, this is where my category is. I'm going to go ahead and call this growth medium. Now you can call it anything as long as it is significant to the groups in your data. So now that I have my data organized, I want to go ahead and add some additional components to my chart to make it easier to see what my data is showing me. So I'm going to select my chart here, and I'm going to click on this little plus sign right here. So I have my axes, but I want to add in some titles for that. I want to add in a legend so that I know which group is which. And I'm also going to add in some error bars, but we're going to look at that in just a moment. Now, seeing as I labeled my series, I can get rid of my horizontal axis title. I don't really need two of saying the same thing. But on my vertical axis, I want to make sure that I call this something that describes what I am measuring in my data. So seeing as this is hypothetical data, I'm just going to assume that it was height measured in centimeters. So now that I have those additional components added to make my graph more descriptive, I'm going to put in some error bars so that I can do a statistical comparison of my data. Now, because I have my data set in two different series and I have a different standard deviation measurement for each series, I want to add my error bars separately. So the first thing I'm going to do is select my blue bar right here. I'm going to come up to my plus sign, and I'm going to come down to the error bar option. Now, I don't just want a standardized error bar. What I want to do is click on this arrow, and I want to go to more options because I don't want Excel to pick the number for me. I want to put in the number that I calculated based on my data. So I'm going to come down and select Custom, and then Specify Value. Now, my positive and negative value are going to be the same thing, and for this, I'm going to use my standard deviation. Now, we might be using half a standard deviation. That's what we would typically use for statistical comparison in our biology lab. But for right now, I'm just going to use the standard deviation just to keep things simple and show you how to do it. Now you see this has only added the error bar to my blue series. That's what I want. Now I'm going to come and do the same thing to my orange series. So again, I'm going to click the plus sign, error bars, select the arrow, pick more options. I'm going to select custom, specify value, and I'm going to select where I have my standard deviation on my chart. So now that I have all of the data that I need on my chart, the last thing I want to add is a title, because I want it to be really clear what it is that I'm showing here. So I'm going to add one more thing and select chart title. And seeing as our hypothetical data here is comparing potting soil to fertilizer, I'm going to call this effect of fertilizer on plant growth. That way, everyone who sees this chart immediately knows what the data is trying to describe, tells you which series is which, it gives you what was measured, including the units, and we've got some error bars which allow us to really easily visually compare these two groups to say if there is a significant difference between them. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this helps when it comes to how to make your graph for your biology lab reports. And please check out the other videos in this section talking about how to choose the type of graph that you need and what types of calculations you might need to do on your data.